carry on, but there actually are ways in which you can explore the future. And past trends, having a look at the trends that have happened in the past gives you some idea about what we might be able to predict into the future. Some idea. So if we can see trends in life expectancy, you can say that, well, the way those trends are going, it looks as if they will carry on for another 25 years. So that's one way of doing it. The other, and you can do that particularly with demography. The other approach that is used, and there's some people who devote their whole careers to this, is that they constantly scan the horizon, and mainly looking at what are the innovative technologies that are beginning to emerge and where will they be applied. So this whole notion of horizon scanning is big in some countries, Singapore particularly, and there are groups in New Zealand who have become quite expert also in horizon scanning. Another approach in health that's used is life course epidemiology, which I'll explain a little bit as we go along, and then there's another way of doing it which has got to do with developing scenarios that might happen. And I just want to look at 2 or 3 of these approaches before giving you a couple of horrific futures. The first is this predicting projecting the future by looking at the population, and you can see in this graph here we're now at about 565,000, just over 500,000. In the year 2050, the population is going to be fairly reliable data. This is going to be about 800,000. If you count the 200,000 living in Australia, you're talking about a population of 1 million. So in 2050, my population will be around about 1 million, and that'll be about 22% of the total population. Now, if you compare that with 1900, when the population was 45,000, what we are seeing in that 150 years is a transformational growth that would have been hard to predict. The prediction in 1900 was that that red line would just keep going down and down and down, and by 1945 it would be all over. That didn't happen. There was a slow increase. The turning point came about 1900. Slow increase, and then you see from about 1945 a sharp increase. And of course 1945 was the year that the Maori Battalion came home. Where you've got a young population, you can predict you'll get a growing population, young people being what they are. And so the Maori population is still relatively youthful, and that's why the growth rate is going to continue well into the future, even if the fertility rate doesn't change very much. The other change that's going to occur is, of course, and you see the trends already, is ethnic diversity will become much greater in New Zealand, and it'll happen in 2 or 3 ways. That the European Pākehā population in proportion will reduce. Fertility rates are below 2 already, which is the replacement, it's not even at a replacement level, therefore it will progressively decrease. The Maori population, as I've said, will increase. In addition to that, the Pacific population will increase at a faster rate, higher fertility rates. And the Asian population will similarly increase at a faster rate, a combination of fertility and immigration. So we're going to have, we can predict this with certainty, that our population is going to be more diverse in 10, in 20 years' time, and even more so in the decade beyond that. Well, the other way of talking about the future is looking at life course epidemiology, and this says that you can get some idea what our health status in 25 years is going to be if you look at our health status today. So that untreated otitis media in infancy, you can predict fairly certainly 25 years later those kids will have had a bad school experience, won't have heard properly. Their health generally will be worse, they will likely to be unemployed, so that they're much more at risk than kids who did not have untreated otitis media. You can predict that children with conduct disorder who are aged 5 now, in 25 years' time will have experienced prison 2 or 3 times. and may still be unemployed. And yet we're talking conduct disorder, we're talking about something which is actually manageable if intervention occurs at the right time. We do very badly with that. People who've got rheumatic heart disease now might well be looking at having a heart valve replacement when they're 40 years old. People who are smoking in adolescence, greater risk of developing cancer, heart disease in the 4th and 5th decades. So to some extent, our future is already in front of us. But it's not inevitable. All of these disorders that occur earlier in life, no matter what the age is, can be treated, can be prevented. Either prevented totally or prevented from getting worse. So we have the technology and the power to do that. So we shouldn't necessarily say that there is an inevitability about this. It depends on the level of intervention. The earlier the intervention, the less likely the impact later in life. The one we do worst with is conduct disorder. We virtually ignore it. It can be picked up at the age of 5. We don't do anything about it. And the results are seen in 16 or 17 years later. I just wanted to talk about 3 scenarios. This is the other way of exploring the future, is to develop some scenarios about what could be. Whatever you do, don't take these as predictions. They're scenarios, and you build scenarios around the trends that can be observed globally and locally. Some of them we know, some of them we just think are happening there. And imagine if you put different combinations together, you can get a picture of what might be. So these are 3 scenarios of what could happen over the next 25 years. First one, whānau oranga, whānau rawakore, and whānau hangarau. The whānau oranga, first of all, this is the environment that will take place. Whānau will have become the beneficiaries of treaty claims. Right, so suddenly there will be their wealth will have increased. They'll be well educated. They'll be very high educational achievers. You can already see brilliance of pockets of absolute brilliance already can be seen. This will be been extended to most Māori school leavers. They'll be well engaged in the Māori world. Won't be strangers to that. They'll be participating fully in wider society. They'll be in meaningful occupations and professions. They will be wealthy. They'll know all about modern environments. They'll be global travellers, and they'll be wise users of technology. I'm not sure whether things like Twitter, what's this other one? Facebook, Bebo, and now I hear YouTube. They sound good. I don't know whether it's making wise use of technology or not, but we can expect that in 25 years' time, whānau will be wise users of technology. They'll know what technology to discard because it's useless, but what technology to use. We don't. We just sort of, anything now that's got a slight glitter, we jump onto. How will it affect their health? Well, if you've got that broad context, we can say in 2035, 90% of Māori kids, Māori children, will be having full vaccination by the age of 2. 90% of Māori population will have had vaccinations for carcinoma of the breast, cervix and prostate. I'm predicting, of course, that they will be available. They'll have BMIs within the safe range. 80% of the whānau will have acceptable body mass index. They will have lifestyles that are compatible with Māori values and customs. Whānau will have rejected alcohol, drug and tobacco abuse. It no longer be cool in whānau. 90% of whānau will be enrolled in approved primary health schemes. 80% of whānau will manage their own health records. They won't need to have other people looking after their health records. They'll have it online themselves, and they will have online contact with their health practitioners and with other health providers, and so they themselves will be in charge of their own health records. They'll be shareholders in a new company called Hauora at Globe.